Most soldiers pray to survive a war. Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart prayed for the war to never end. Imagine a man who was shot in the face, the stomach, the ankle, the leg, the hip, and the ear. A man who survived 2 separate plane crashes, tunneled out of a high-security prison camp at the age of 61, and personally bit off his own fingers when a doctor refused to amputate them. You might think this sounds like the plot of an over-the-top action movie. But this was the real life of one of the most decorated and indestructible men to ever wear a British uniform. But the most terrifying thing about him wasn't his luck, it was his attitude. In his memoirs, looking back at decades of horrific bloodshed, he wrote one of the most famous lines in military history: "Frankly, I enjoyed the war." This is the story of the man who was quite literally too hard to kill. The Royal Rebel. Adrian wasn't born in a trench, he was born in a palace. Born in 1880 to Belgian aristocrats, his life was mapped out for him. Expensive schools, a law degree from Oxford, and a quiet life in high society. But Adrian was bored. He didn't want a gavel, he wanted a sword. In 1899, when the Boer War broke out in South Africa, he saw his chance. There was just one problem. He wasn't British, he was underaged, and his father hadn't given him permission. Adrian did what he would do for the rest of his life: he ignored the rules. He dropped out of Oxford, gave a false name, lied about his age, and enlisted. His first taste of combat was short and brutal. He was shot in the groin and the stomach and sent back to England. It was only then that his father discovered where he had been. But instead of being deterred, the wounds only acted as a drug. Adrian had found his calling. He was officially a soldier. The eye of the storm. Fast forward to 1914. The world was catching fire. While the rest of the world watched the build-up to World War I with dread, Adrian was desperate to get to the front lines. But first, he was sent to Somaliland to deal with an uprising led by the Mad Mullah. During an assault on an enemy fort, Adrian was leading from the front, as he always did, when he was hit. Not once but twice, in the face. He lost his left eye and a portion of his ear. Most men would receive a glass eye and a pension and spend the rest of their lives telling this story. Adrian? He reportedly thought the eye patch made him look more distinguished. He was sent back to England to recover, but the hospital was too quiet for him. He spent his recovery time lobbying the War Office to send him to France. He didn't just want to be in the war. He wanted to be where the fighting was the most hopeless. The Western Front and self-surgery. By the time he reached the Western Front in France, Adrian was a legend. He was now a commander, but he didn't stay in the safety of the bunkers. He lived in the mud with his men. During the Battle of the Somme, one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history, Adrian's left hand was shattered by shrapnel. He was sent to a field hospital where a doctor told him the hand might be saved, but it would take months of surgeries and rest. Adrian looked at his mangled, useless fingers and decided he didn't have time for rest. When the doctor refused to amputate, Adrian reportedly got tired of waiting. He used his teeth to bite off the shattered fingers and threw them aside. Even with a missing eye and a stump for a hand, he returned to the trenches. At the Battle of La Boisselle, after every other commanding officer had been killed, Adrian took charge of 3 different units. He was seen standing in no man's land, pulling the pins out of grenades with his teeth and hurling them with his one good arm while bullets whizzed past his head. For this, he was awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest military honor. When asked about the medal later, he simply said, "It was won by the unit, not by me." You would think that by World War II, a man in his 60s with one eye, one hand, and a body held together by scar tissue would be retired. But the British government knew that Adrian was a psychological weapon. In 1941, he was sent on a mission to Yugoslavia. His plane ran out of fuel and plummeted into the Mediterranean Sea. At 61 years old, Adrian crawled out of the wreckage, ignored his broken back, and swam a mile to shore using his one good arm. He was captured by the Italians and thrown into a high-security prisoner of war camp reserved for top generals. Did he wait for a diplomatic rescue? No. Over the next 2 years, he made 5 escape attempts. In the most famous one, he and another officer spent 7 months tunneling through solid rock. At age 62, he escaped through the tunnel and spent 8 days trekking through the Italian countryside disguised as a peasant. He was eventually caught, but only because he was too tall, had too many scars, and didn't speak a word of Italian. He didn't care. To him, the escape was just another game. Eventually, Adrian was released as a gesture of back-channel diplomacy. But he wasn't done. Winston Churchill, a man who loved a character, sent him to China to be his personal representative to General Chiang Kai-shek. While in China, his plane crashed. Again. Once again, he crawled out of the burning metal, this time with a broken back and new injuries to his already battered legs. He dusted himself off and finished his mission. By the time he finally retired in 1947, he had been promoted to lieutenant general. He had lived through the most violent half-century in history and had sought out every single battle he could find. Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart eventually settled down in a quiet house in Ireland. He spent his final years fishing and writing his memoirs, the ones where he claimed he enjoyed the horrors he witnessed. He died peacefully in his bed in 1963 at the age of 83. It seems that after decades of trying to take him by lead, fire, and gravity, death finally realized it couldn't take Adrian by force. It simply had to wait for him to finally get bored and decide it was time to go. History remembers the names of kings and presidents, but it's the stories of men like Adrian, the unkillable, the stubborn, and the brave, that remind us of just how much a human being can endure. If you enjoyed this story of a hero the world almost forgot, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have hundreds of untold stories waiting to be unearthed. Until next time, keep looking for the history they didn't teach you in school.